Hello everybody and welcome back to Carried Away Travels. In this week's video, we're going to be talking about the most epic spots to visit on Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula. Now, if you've been following Iceland news at all for like the last year and a half, you've probably heard about the Reykjanes Peninsula because there is a lot of volcanic activity going on there right now. The Gunnuhver volcano has erupted like 7 times in the past year or so, and it has created a lot of commotion, a lot of damage in this area. But in general, the Reykjanes Peninsula has been one of the more active volcanic spots in the whole country since like 2021. Because of this, the whole area around here does kind of look more like a moon landscape. Like it is very drab and rocky because of all of that fresh lava that's come and cooled down. There's not always a lot of green, and so it may not feel like the most welcoming place or a place that you really want to explore, but there is so much to see on this peninsula, and a lot of it does have to do with all of that volcanic and geothermal activity. So here are some things that I would recommend you do before you just dismiss this area and head straight to Reykjavik. Speaking of which, if you are flying into Reykjavik, there's a very good chance that you're actually flying into the Keflavik airport, which is on the Reykjanes Peninsula. That is like the biggest regional airport. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not going anywhere near the Reykjanes Peninsula, you might actually be landing right there. So as you make your way to Reykjavik, which is about 45 minutes away by bus, there's plenty of here that you can just do and see and then go on your way. Now, like I said, this is not the most gorgeous area, and if this is your very first impression of Iceland, you may not be absolutely wowed. We landed in the Keflavik airport around 5 a.m., I believe, on a red-eye flight. And so as the sun was coming up, we were just driving past all of this lava, and it wasn't super impressive, but off in the distance we could see the volcano glowing, which was super cool. But then as we got a little closer to Reykjavik, the scenery was definitely greener and we could see the mountains. But we actually came back this way twice during the day, and the water along the coastline is so blue, and the areas where the eruptions happened much longer ago are covered in this beautiful green moss, and you can see these really cool rock formations. So while some of the areas that have recently been affected are a little more dismal, they're still very cool, definitely worth visiting. But there are some areas that are a lot more intriguing and beautiful, and so there's just a great diversity in the landscape here, even just within lava flows. And so there's just so much to see, so be sure you don't dismiss it at first sight. Now, before we dive into these epic stops, I do want to give a very special welcome to anyone who is visiting my channel for the very first time. I'm Carrie, and I share helpful travel tips, itineraries, gear recommendations, and more, so you can always have the perfect trip. If that sounds like the kind of content you want more of on your feed, whether it's for Iceland or a different country or just general travel information, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can get more videos like this from me in the future. And without further ado, let's dive in. First up is the Reykjanes Lighthouse. Now, this is actually the oldest lighthouse in Iceland, and it was originally built in 1878, but it was later rebuilt in 1907. It's on this high hill, and it's got these awesome panoramic views of the Atlantic Ocean. And while you can't go inside, the surrounding area is perfect for a scenic walk, even if it's cold and wintry outside. And if you're lucky, you might even see some seabirds or seals near the shore. Just on the road from the Reykjanes Lighthouse, you will find Valahnukamol. As always, if I butcher any of these Icelandic names, I sincerely apologize. I promise I am trying my best. Now, the coastline here is super rugged and epic. It's been shaped by all the waves and the wind, and the ocean here just looks absolutely powerful, crashing against these cliffs. It's very dramatic. But it's also home to one of the most unexpected movie props in Iceland. If you happen to see the Eurovision movie with Will Ferrell, you might remember the scene from the beginning where they're filming a music video and they're playing their keyboards, and those keyboards are still there. They have them bolted down so they don't blow away. They are definitely weathered, but they are so cool to visit. So if you're a fan of the film, make sure you take a moment to stop by and take some photos while you're standing in this really gorgeous area. Next up, we're gonna head to the Gunnuhver Hot Springs, which is one of the most intense geothermal areas in all of Iceland. So this area is a really interesting mix of bubbling mud pools and a ton of steam. If you're there on a windy day, like we were, there's a chance all you're going to see is steam, but it's a risk you might want to take, because if the weather is cooler or you get a break between that steam, these mud pools are so cool because they have all of these really interesting colors created by the minerals. They're also just so fascinating to see bubbling up like they do. It is very extreme. It's very hot over there, which is also crazy if it's a cold day. Like, they're just really interesting to get close to, but you do need to be very careful. Just be warned that this spot can be incredibly windy. I think this was the windiest area we visited in the entire area of Iceland. So especially if it's like cold, make sure you have a really good coat and you have your hood up and everything secured, because there is a very good chance it will get blown away if it's not. I think I almost got blown away once or twice. So just take that as you will. Now, this next one is a stop that we unfortunately had to just do a drive-by for, but it is one of the coolest spots on the Reykjanes Peninsula, and that is the bridge between continents. Now, if you've been watching some of my other videos, you might know already that there's another very popular place where you can actually go into this continental divide, and that is Thingvellir National Park. There is a rift there, and so you can stand on either continent while you're in this park. However, in this part of the Reykjanes Peninsula, there's actually a bridge that spans that gap, and so you can start on one continent and walk across and end on a different one. It's the North American and Eurasian plates. If you have the time, definitely make the stop. I was so disappointed that we couldn't, but it is such a fun photo op. And again, it's just so cool to be able to say that you were just on two different continents in such a short period of time. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times, most of the Reykjanes Peninsula is covered in lava rock, but depending on where you drive, you do have the opportunity to see some fresh lava from the more recent eruptions over the past like 4 to 5 years. When we visited, because there had been some very recent eruptions, a lot of this rock was still steaming, and a lot of the roads were actually closed off because the lava flow had gone over the road and this area was hot, and if you drove over it, it would actually melt your tires, even though it had been several weeks to several months in some points, because lava actually takes an incredibly long time to cool down. However, there are roads that they have cleared and reopened and they're safe to drive on, and you can just go, and there are these mounds of lava rock on either side of the road. You can see the volcano off in the distance, and it is just such a cool sight to be that close to all of this. And again, it's dark and drab, but you're where a volcano just erupted. Like, it's really cool. So if you can safely do so, I would recommend you visit some of those approved cleared roads and just get up close to that fresh lava, because that could be a once in a lifetime experience. Now, depending on the volcanic activity, there are a couple other stops that I would recommend, but only if you can safely do so. The first is a visit to the Fagradalsfjall volcano. That's the one that erupted back in 2021, 22, and I believe 2023. And so if you go there, you'll have a chance to see some of these fresh lava fields up close on foot, because they do have some approved hiking paths. And one of the most popular stops in all of Iceland has been the Blue Lagoon for a very long time. It's been open and closed on and off quite a bit over the past year because of the other volcanic activity, just with the air quality and how close the lava was flowing to it. It may or may not be open, but if it is open and you can safely go visit, definitely visit the Blue Lagoon as well to try out those geothermal waters. However, if you can't, I do have a couple other lagoons that I would recommend, including the Secret Lagoon, which is on the Golden Circle, and the Sky Lagoon, which is just down the road right outside of Reykjavik. They're both very different from the Blue Lagoon, but they're great geothermal hot springs experiences. I feel like the Reykjanes Peninsula is often overshadowed by other parts of Iceland, and in all honesty, this was not the most beautiful or crazy spot we visited, but it does have so much to offer, and there is so much other stuff to do here. There are museums, there are cool hiking spots, there's a few little villages. Like, there is a lot to do and see here, so I do recommend taking a day or at least half a day to swing by all of these stops before you just leave it behind and go on to all the other parts of Iceland, especially since this area is just such a hotbed for volcanic activity. You're going to be able to see and experience some stuff here that you're not going to be able to in any other parts of the country until there's another active eruption. All right, those are the top spots I would recommend that you visit on the Reykjanes Peninsula before continuing your journey into the rest of Iceland. Once again, these are just such unique spots, especially the ones with the geothermal activity. You're just not going to see these quite to this extent anywhere else in the country, so they're definitely worth visiting. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any comments or questions, please feel free to drop those down in the comments section below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I also have a full written blog post, as always, where you can go in and read this information with some additional details and just explore a lot of other adventures from Iceland if you prefer to read versus watch. So be sure to check that out at cochranewriting.com. Don't forget to like this video, save it for future reference, share it with your Iceland travel buddies, and subscribe to Carried Away Travels to get more videos from me in the future, both on Iceland and a lot of other places in America and around the world. Thank you once again for stopping by, and I wish you many happy travels.